Alright then, I have just a few more tricks of the trade for Chapter 4 before we move on. One of them is kind of a nice one. It is pretty common in these books for them to ask you to draw the equation of the line of best fit or draw the least squares regression line on the scattergram or whatever. I'm not sure where it is. There it is. Okay, so we remember we drew the scattergram in an earlier tutorial. I mean, it wasn't this beautiful, this is Excel. If you want to know how to do this in Excel, I've got video tutorials up on YouTube for that if you're interested. But if you want to do it with your calculator, it's not even that hard to do. I mean, for starters, you could just go to y equals and just type the equation. I mean, we know what the equation is, we just found it. But, I mean, here, let me type. It would be negative. Make sure you use this little negative symbol down here, 0.28 x, which is this button up here underneath the link, right? X plus 69.1, right? Then when I graph, yep, there's the line. Isn't it beautiful? So you could type it yourself in the y equals button. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, let me show you this. When you do the linear regression, stat, calc, number 4, linear regression, it's blinking. Now if you just press enter, it's just going to find this information again, right? But let me teach you, there's a little trick. If you go to the variables button, right, VARS, right there, so you click that, and you move to the right to the y variables. I want the y variables dark. Choose number 1. The parametric polar thing, these two guys are pre-calculus and calculus level stuff, so we're never going to use that. You want a function, right? Just like an algebra class. And then you can pick any equation you like. I'm going to pick number 1 because that's the way I roll. Actually, no. Variables, y variables, number 1. I'm going to pick number 2. There it is. Oops, I have too many of them in there. That's okay. Just go back to the left and press delete. There you go. I only want one of these. Alright, so what's going to happen? It's going to run linear regression. Since I didn't tell it any lists, it's going to do L1, L2 by default. That's okay with me because that's where my data is. If you've got your data in L3 and L4, though, you've got to tell it L3, L4, Y2. Let me give you an example. If I was doing that, it would be second L1, because that's where my data is for my X. X always comes first. Second to L2, right? So you're telling this is my explanatory variable, this is my response variable, comma, second, oops, not second, I'm sorry, variables, y variables, number 1, pick any number you like. I'm going to pick number 2 for the fun of it. There it is. So you press enter. Now it doesn't look any different. I get that. It ran the same information. Haha. But if I go to y equals, look what happened in y2. It stored the equation for me with all the decimal places. Look at that. 0.28259327 blah 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 x plus 69.108 blah 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 blah. Right? It kept it all for me. Okay? So again, how did I do that? Let me show it to you again. Second enter. Right, there it was. I did linear regression, which here, let me clear the history so you can see it. Stat, calc, number 4, linear regression, variables, y variables, number 1, number whatever. I'll pick number 1 this time. Okay. Again, you can just press enter right now. If you kept it in funky lists, you got to tell it L1, L2, Y1 if you want to. If you do it L1, L2, though, you don't have to tell it L1, L2. If you do anything other than L1, L2, you've got to tell it that first, like I did on the previous example. And then you press enter. Okay. So linear regression, you can do it here. Let me show you this way. Linear regression Y1. That'll do it, but it'll do it with L1, L2. Or you can do linear regression L1, L2, Y, whatever. It'll do it that way too. Whichever way floats your boat. Okay? But it stores it for you, see, with all the decimals, and that way when you graph it, there it is with all the decimals. So that little y variable trick is kind of nice. Alrighty, and then again, you don't have to do it. You could just go to y equals and type it your own self. You'll just lose a lot of decimal places that way. Alrighty, see you here later for the next tutorial.